Today, we are decoding the world's very first comprehensive law for artificial intelligence. And believe me, this isn't just some other piece of regulation. This is a blueprint that is probably going to change how AI is built and used, not just in Europe, but everywhere. So let's just start with a really provocative question. Could the AI you're using every single day, or maybe the one your company's building right now, could it actually be illegal soon? I know it sounds extreme, but with this new law, it's a very real question that businesses all over the world are suddenly having to ask.
And the reason why is the European Union's brand new AI Act. This is so much more than just another regulation. It's really the first complete legal framework for AI from a major world power, and it's basically guaranteed to set a global precedent.
Okay, so to really get our heads around the AI Act, we've got to start with the most fundamental question: why? Why was this thing even created? What problem is it actually trying to solve?
Well, the heart of the issue is what's called the black box problem. You've got AI systems making these hugely important decisions about our lives, about jobs, loans, even whether you get into university. But here's the catch. We often can't see the logic behind those decisions, which makes it incredibly difficult, almost impossible, to challenge an outcome that might be totally unfair or biased.
So how on earth did the EU decide to tackle this massive problem? Well, instead of creating just one single rule for all AI, they built the entire law around this one really powerful idea: a risk pyramid.
And the logic is actually pretty simple. The more potential an AI system has to cause real harm, the more heavily it gets regulated. In other words, the higher the risk to our safety or our fundamental rights, the stricter the rules get. This four-tiered pyramid you see here, this is the very heart of the AI Act. It's all about proportionality. Most AI, the stuff at the bottom like spam filters or video game AIs, they face no new rules at all. But as you start to move up that pyramid, the obligations get much, much tougher, all the way to the top, where there's an entire category of AI that is now just banned.
So let's take a look at what's been completely forbidden. We're talking about AI that is considered a clear and present threat to people's rights. This includes things like government-run social scoring systems. Think Black Mirror. Or AI that exploits vulnerable people to manipulate their behavior. Also banned, the mass scraping of facial images from the internet to build databases, and using emotion recognition tech in schools or workplaces. All of these are now completely off limits in the EU, period.
Now, the next tier down is probably the most complex and, honestly, the most consequential category: high-risk AI. Now, these systems aren't banned outright, but they have to clear some incredibly high hurdles to even be considered legal. So what actually qualifies as high risk? Well, basically, it's any system where a failure could have really serious consequences. This includes that software that sorts your CV for a job application, the algorithm deciding your credit score, the AI managing critical infrastructure like our power grids or transport systems, and even systems used in law enforcement or robot-assisted surgery.
And for anyone out there building these kinds of systems, the rules are incredibly strict. You have to conduct rigorous risk assessments, you have to ensure your training data is high quality and unbiased, you have to build in mandatory human oversight so a person can always intervene, and you have to keep detailed technical documentation to prove you're compliant.
And the penalty for getting this wrong? It is absolutely severe. For the most serious violations, a company can be fined up to 7% of its global annual turnover. For the biggest tech companies on the planet, that could literally mean billions of dollars. That's a fine that makes compliance a complete and total necessity. All right, now for the topic that's on everybody's mind. What about all this generative AI? Models like ChatGPT and all the others that have just exploded in popularity. How does the AI Act handle them? It really is the question that everyone asks. Are these incredibly powerful general-purpose models classified as high risk? Well, the answer is, it's a little nuanced. So, for the most part, no. General-purpose models like ChatGPT are not automatically labeled high risk, but they have their own distinct set of rules, and these are all focused on one thing: transparency. They have to make it crystal clear that content is AI-generated. They must take steps to prevent the creation of illegal material, and, this is the really big one, they have to publish detailed summaries of the copyrighted data they were trained on. And this focus on transparency goes even further when we're talking about manipulated content. Any AI-generated audio or video, what we all call deepfakes, has to be explicitly and clearly labeled so that you, the user, are never tricked into thinking that synthetic media is actually real.
Okay, so we've looked at the rules, but why does a law that's passed in Europe matter so much to, say, a developer in California or a company in Tokyo? The answer is a fascinating phenomenon that's known as the Brussels effect.
So, what is the Brussels effect? It describes what happens when global companies, in order to get access to the massive and incredibly wealthy EU market, choose to just adopt EU regulations for all of their products everywhere. I mean, think about it. It's often way easier and cheaper to just have one global standard, rather than creating 10 different versions for 10 different regions. And just like that, EU law effectively becomes the world's law.
And the impacts of this are just huge. The AI Act applies to literally any company whose product is used inside the EU, no matter where they're based. This is going to mean a massive investment in compliance worldwide. It creates a brand new global benchmark for AI safety. And for companies that get ahead of the curve, proving their AI is trustworthy could become a major competitive advantage.
So with all these global impacts in mind, the final question becomes a very practical one. The clock is ticking. The question is, are companies actually ready for this?
This law is going to roll out in phases, but the deadlines are coming up really fast. Bans on the most dangerous types of AI, those kick in early in 2025. The rules for generative AI follow later that year. And then by August 2026, the entire act, including all those complex rules for high-risk systems, will be fully in force.
So for any business out there that's using or building AI, preparation is absolutely key. It all starts with mapping out all of your AI systems and then classifying them according to that risk pyramid. From there, it's really about establishing clear governance, documenting absolutely everything, and building transparency into your user experience from the very, very beginning.
Which leaves us with the big final question. The whole goal of the AI Act is to foster trustworthy, human-centric AI. But will it actually succeed in setting a responsible, global standard that everyone follows? Or will its strict rules end up stifling the very innovation it's trying to govern? That, right there, is the debate that is going to define the next era of artificial intelligence.